Let's make some introductions. I think, yeah, I've got.
Give me 1 second, Andy.
Okay.
Give me 1 second. Come on, where are you? I hit record. There we go.
Well, I'm already recording it, but.
Okay, Andy, I'm fine.
Okay. So anyway, so welcome everybody. Hopefully we'll have others that'll join in. So I see Gordy went blank on me. So Gordy's here with us today. And oh, there he is. And well, so first of all, this is the second iteration of the Northern Division virtual clinics. So we just want to welcome everybody. Thank you very much for joining. Hopefully we'll have some of the other folks join in from the Northern Division. I also personally invited all of the leadership to join in today to support the Northern Division Clinic. So hopefully we'll see some of them.
I posted it on the website. I posted it on Facebook. I don't know.
That's fine. So so what we're doing today is, this is, like I said, this is the second in a set of virtual clinics. The physical Northern Division Clinic will be in June at our train show in June. And as such, there'll be we'll do a hybrid meeting there. So hopefully we can get some things like the A&P stuff done where people can inspect, the AP the AP coordinators and can go through and inspect people's modules or layouts or whatever. I'm hoping we might even be able to do like a modeling contest, but we'll see. Since we maxed out room last year, and we were literally like as close together as we get everybody. So with that, I'd like to acknowledge that Gordy Robinson is here, the NMRA President. If he wants to say a couple of quick words, that's fine. Gordy, you want to address?
Hi, sorry, just family.
Oh, no worries.
I was hoping there'd be a few more of you, but it's good to see those that are here, and you're recording, so I guess you're going to share this with everybody. But it's nice to be along. I turn up when I'm invited, usually.
There you go. All right, and then today we have. Well, let me introduce, if you don't already know, but Bob Fierstein is the Northern Division Superintendent, and this is really his show. So I'm going to let Bob say a couple words.
Hi, welcome. Thank you for all showing up. Yeah, we invited 130 people, and I'm glad at least Richard, you showed up, and from our group, and Chip, nice meeting you for the first time.
Nice to meet you.
And then Bob, thank you for giving your talk on operations, and Christina, same to you, not your operations. And I like your hairstyle.
Oh, I'm allowed in my basement now.
Gosh, she's hiding in the basement.
Hi, Eric. I don't know you personally, but I know the other people. So thank you for showing up.
Well, I have a history on the Northern Division. I was the superintendent about 10 years ago when we really restarted it, along with Richard Siegel and some others. So I got the notice. I still subscribe to your information, and so sound like a good meet. And I thought I'd see anybody I recognize. So glad to be here. I'm in Indianapolis, Indiana area, the Central Indiana Division of the Midwest region, and I'm also very involved with O-Scale Central, the modeling special interest group for O-Scale 2 rail.
Well, thank you.
Now the bell went off, Eric. Nice to meet you.
Good to see you.
All righty, so what we're going to do today is we're going to start off with Christina. Christina, you're going to be the first up. Christina, you got about 45 minutes, and then Bob, you'll have about 45 minutes, and if there's any questions, we'll have people do some questions and answers at the end of your talk. Unless you have like legit stopping points and you want to ask if there's any questions, that's fine too. So.
No, I was already at Little League this morning, so I'm
well,
good.
all right, so Christina, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and let me make sure you can share your screen.
Yeah.
Hold on a minute. I keep clicking the wrong dang button. Give me a second. There you go. Now you should be able to share. There you go.
Oh boy, this is
Okay.
Looks good.
this is up here. Okay. No, I'm not so good on the screen sharing, but I think we're good. Welcome everybody. For those of you who don't know me, and Chip, I know I owe you a phone call and an email.
Yep.
I
We'll
am
get to it.
this week, definitely. This past week was a little hectic around here. So I am in New Jersey and surrounded by railroads every which way I go. But I started with the NMRA in 2016. So my first national convention was actually Indianapolis. Speaking of Indianapolis. And so I've been doing the marketing, trying to do the marketing for the NMRA, basically helping with retention and recruitment. And a lot of that responsibility lies in the hands of the regions and divisions, since you guys are the ones who are on the ground and meeting people and having your meets and things like that. So I'm also here as a resource for you guys. So the presentation that I'm putting on today is what I call my region division marketing clinic. So it's supposed to give you guys the benefits. Uh-oh. I think I brought up the wrong.
Says why join the NMRA? Why renew?
No, hang on. Oh, I was rushing around.
This is why I love you, Christina. You're so human.
I am. I am. Hang on. Let's find the right presentation. Sorry about that.
Was it virtual event marketing slides? No. Oh,
No. I clicked the wrong one and I added the wrong slide. I'm a mess.
Nothing a beer won't fix.
Yeah, a little early for that, but
It's 5 o'clock.
warm enough. The pool's open. We were down the shore yesterday.
It's
Wow. That
Oh,
warm up
yeah.
there, huh?
It was 90 degrees yesterday.
It snowed yesterday.
Oh, God.
Oh yeah, Gordy, I saw the pictures.
Yeah.
Okay, here, I've got my,
So go into presentation mode.
hang on a second, yep. Now I have to switch my screens. I'm bad with this.
Just, you can stop sharing and then reshare and then share the other screen.
There we go. All right,
Now share the other screen.
yes. I'm on 3 different screens here, so. There we go. Okay,
Dun, dun, dun. Good
everybody
it.
can see it. All right, so now that I have the right, now that I have the right PowerPoint up, the other PowerPoint is used during the NMRA X, and it's also for anybody doing meetings, virtual stuff, and they want to explain the benefits of the NMRA. That's just kind of a quick ad slide, just highlighting the main things to push when you meet people and they ask what the NMRA is about. So this one is a little more in depth. It gives you ideas and helpful hints and tools to help you guys with your recruitment and your retention. So we're trying to work hard. What's exciting is that I'm hearing from a lot of divisions now and a lot of members. Andy is an example of people looking for, ways to grow, better ways to do things, to keep it more exciting. Bob too, same thing. And Bob and I talk a lot, and he's been doing the calendar. So we finally have a working calendar on our website. So, all right. So how you can help market and grow your division. Okay. Oh, there we go. So just a basic overview. You want to discuss the benefits, the tools on the website, marketing materials that are available, general best practices, how you handle new members. I know the monthly reports are changing, which maybe Gordy can address a little bit more. Social media and the importance of it, other ways to get yourselves out there. And these are all kind of cost-effective ways or zero cost. So it's very efficient and economic for the divisions and the regions, especially those that don't have as much money. Internal communications, staying up to date. Part of that is the calendar, but it's also going on our website. It's going on our Facebook page. It's getting newsletters, things like that. Proper way to set up booths and man booths, because I've seen very good and very poor. Meetings, fundraising, and then there's always special cases. So one thing you want to be aware of are all the benefits of membership. So obviously you can check out our website, which is in the process of being updated and kind of reorganized. If you have not done so already, and make sure when you get new members, you make sure that they sign up and register on the website, because you can't get to all of the goodies behind the member wall unless you are registered. So we have the partnership program, which has been going on since 2017. It is a wonderful way to save money, and also you save enough usually to pay for your membership. So we just brought on 3 more partners. So they're basically manufacturer partners. And we try to get a variety, I guess, of different manufacturers. So there's something for everybody. They agree to give our members a discount, and the discount information and the codes can all be found only on the members only portion of the website. So you get exclusive discounts, and in return, we do some free advertising for our partners. We just picked up 3 more, and then I have a couple of follow-ups for this month, which came about from Springfield Show in Massachusetts in January. If you are out and about, you're at shows, you see a manufacturer you like, feel free to offer it to them and just have them email me. Because we're more than happy to welcome new partners all the time. The more partners we have, obviously, the better the benefit for our members. So our brand new, a couple of months old now, NMRA Interchange. So I don't know if you're all familiar with Discord, which is generally used a lot for gamers and things like that. But instead of our previous online forums we had where members could ask questions, they never functioned well. They've been pretty much dormant for years. So the Interchange is a brand new way. Sign up for Discord. And there's an even walks you right through. There's an I need help right away, if you have trouble logging in. And there are channels on there for everything. So whatever modeling interests you have, programs and events and departments throughout the NMRA, region and division channels. You can go on and just hang out. There's hangout rooms where you can just talk to other members, have your own little informal thing. You can do away with Zoom if you want to, because you can also do video through the Interchange. So, and you can talk to members from all over the world, which is phenomenal. We've had very, very good response on the Interchange. There's even a marketing channel So I get an alert if someone questions or comments, or you can also have, do private messaging with people. So there's that feature as well. So it's a pretty cool thing. If you go on and explore it, there you'll find, there's definitely something for everyone. And just the fact that, it could be morning here and you're talking to somebody in Australia and sometimes I just go on to see who's on and jump in a conversation. But it's a great way to learn, to interact with members, to share practices, to help each other. And like I said, it could be someone, who's closest down the street from you and as far away as Australia and New Zealand. If you do need help, like I said, there's generally some part of the team that is awake and monitoring throughout the day and the night. And the instructions for all that, you guys were emailed the dispatch for that. And the instructions, it's also on the website. So we have a model railroad layout directory, which haven't been promoting much lately, but if you have a layout or you're interested in visiting layouts, you're taking a road trip, that you can plug in, scale, zip code, you name it, and people have listed their layouts, and you give them a call or an email and, hey, I'm going to be in Jersey next week. Can I come by? And sure, they'll let you in. If you have a layout you're willing to open up to members who are traveling, or even nearby, people have found that, the guy around the corner is an NMRA member. So that's a pretty neat thing. We've got the insurance, which is now, I believe it's 2 million and it goes up to 5 million. And then there's also insurance for your own layouts as well that are offered at a discounted price. So the insurance is a very nice benefit. It covers all NMRA sponsored events. So that's good. And insurance, obviously the prices keep going up. So publications, the magazine, I know you're all familiar with the print magazine. I'm not sure how many of you have checked out the digital magazine, but there are some definite benefits there. You can take it with you anywhere, tablet, cell phone, laptop. The digital comes out, you'll receive it, you can read it faster than if you were getting the print, which is a nice benefit. And we're going to be able to add more content via digital. So we're looking at ways to expand more into the special interest groups, or, support different scales, or maybe have a section highlighting each scale every month. So I'm working on that with Riley Triggs, who's our head of publishing. So, and we get the e-bulletin, which is every 2 months. The turntable is every month. If you haven't checked these out, I highly recommend you do. The turntable kind of takes the millions of search results you'll get on YouTube when you put in model railroading, and a volunteer of ours, Paul Volker, down in the Atlanta area, he puts that together. So he goes in, and so that the content you're getting is vetted by someone who's knowledgeable about model railroading. And whereas if you just go online and type in model railroading or how to, you could get, God knows what you might get. It could be someone who just started it yesterday and decided they wanted a channel. So it's a good place to start looking around YouTube. It also has some local information or NMRA information. A list of the partners is there every time, and that's constantly being updated. We also have a hobby shop, attraction, and museum discount section, which we're trying to now merge with the partnership program. That does not get as much attention as the partnership program. It's also not visible publicly, which partnership program partners are listed publicly, but the ordering instructions are behind the member wall. The hobby shop, attraction, museum discount is all behind the member wall. You've got conventions, events, meetings, obviously the people. People say they join for the trains and stay for the people. And it's very, very true. I've made wonderful friends, a lot of whom I consider family in the time that I've been with the NMRA. And I love getting out there and traveling. I'll be at the SSR convention in the fall, doing a clinic and meeting people. I get the best information when I can get in front of the members and figure out what's going well, what's not. You get access to places or events that you might not normally get. If any of you are going to the Dallas Fort Worth National Convention, I believe there's, for example, a BNSF tour that as a normal modeler, if you weren't an NMRA member, you wouldn't get to do things like that. I got to see George Celios's layout, which normally isn't open, to just anybody. And then you have access to members from all over the world. So you're sharing knowledge, you're making friends. People say sometimes, I know you guys have a lot of clubs in the Sunshine region, and some of them are 100% NMRA clubs, some aren't. And then you also will hear from a lot of people, well, I have my club. Why do I need the NMRA? Well, your club is a static location and it attracts people from around that area. So if you're fine with that, wonderful. But with the NMRA, you've got access to so many more resources. And that's not saying dump the club, but NMRA is worldwide. You're getting a much broader audience, more people to help you. You'd be amazed. You go somewhere, and Gordy moved to Orkney and realized there was an NMRA member in northern Scotland. So we end up popping up everywhere. So those are kind of an overview of the benefits. Obviously, we're always looking to grow and do more benefits, and that's part of my job is finding additional benefits that come from national. So that are NMRA benefits. Which are obviously benefits no matter what region or division you belong to. And your region and division may have other things that they do to keep people interested locally. So as I talked about the website, this is the view when you are logged in. You get a whole nother menu. And so you see home, model railroad directory, data sheets, publications, promotional materials, which are being updated. And I got to update the partnership program flyer, but we do have some valid materials here. The benefits PowerPoint presentation, which is the one that I accidentally put up the first time. There are recruitment videos, which I got to stop touching my mouse. Recruitment videos that are handy to play if you bring a laptop to a train show. You just have it playing on a laptop as people are walking by. It's something to attract them. We have the trifold brochure, which any show that you have, you can contact headquarters and they will send you out a promo pack, which has trifold brochures. It has membership applications. It has copies of old magazines, so people can see the different magazines. And Jenny tries to put in ones that feature different things. So, but that's all you can download right from the promo materials. Logo's also there. Like I said, we are updating all of that as well.
Christina.
Yes.
So just because I do this every day for my faculty and staff, just hit the space bar and that'll advance your slide.
Thank you.
If you touch the mouse, it'll do all kinds of crazy.
I know, I'm so used to mouse.
Just hit the space bar, and if you need to back up, hit backspace.
All right, thank you. And I know all this, it just goes out of my head, but so
Little reminder.
I appreciate it, Andy. So NMRA marketing materials, which we are continuing to update. Basically, we saw what was needed. Some of the stuff has just been around for too long, and it's no longer completely accurate. There's stuff missing off of it. So we also, if you go on, it hasn't been released publicly yet because it's not finished. Under education, you will find a division toolkit that I've putting together, and that you will find PowerPoints, you'll find templates for welcome letters to new members, surveys. So I'm trying to get basic stuff out there so you guys, no one's got to reinvent the wheel. I'll have something for the partnership program. There's a retention and recruitment brochure, recruitment video, the logos, the applications. And then I've also added something. Oh, yeah, this is the webpage for division newsletter articles and stuff is kind of morphed into the division toolkit. So there's also stuff in there that you can put in when you need something for a newsletter. You need an article, things like that. They will all be uploaded into one spot. So that's getting revamped as well. But those are some tools you can use. And obviously you can always reach out to me. Andy did a trifold for the Sunshine region recently. He worked with me, just having me check it over, things like that. So I'm always available for that as well. So, general best practices. If you need info or you're curious about, why someone didn't renew or why someone figure out what your members in your area are looking for. Do they want more meets? Do they want less meets? Would they rather have things virtual? Are you communicating enough? Things like that. I can add you to SurveyMonkey as a casual user. And because NMRA already has a master SurveyMonkey account, we will occasionally send out things as well. I think we're about to put out a contest related survey and then a general membership survey so we can kind of gauge where we are and what we're doing. We also just formed a non-renewal survey. So I'm getting a list of all the people that did not renew from headquarters, and we're just doing it. This is our first shot. We just did a test. So we want to better understand when people aren't renewing, why not? That's also something you can do on a local level. And when people don't renew, you obviously, send reminders, things like that. And that's what you're supposed to be doing with the end of month, your end of month membership numbers. You can see who's coming up for renewal, who's coming off rail pass, things like that. And if you don't hear from somebody, the phone, sometimes people just forget to renew. So picking up the phone or shooting an email, try to find out if they meant to not renew, why they didn't renew, and is there anything we could do to change that? So that's what we're going to also be doing from a national level. So if you meet a new member and you already have an event planned or a meet planned, tell them about it right away. So you've got this new member who signed up, get him to your first event, like have it already on the calendar, so that they can come join. Or if someone's on the fence about joining, have them come to a meeting, have them come to an event. But the idea is to get some kind of date on their calendar. So if you have the means, form a region or division marketing committee. Some regions have them, some don't. And that's also why I'm here to help. And one of the issues we have too is people say, I'm not good enough for the NMRA. Because they think the NMRA, you've got to have these big fancy layouts and all this space, and you don't have to. You don't even have to have a layout. You don't even have to have a display, nothing. This is all about from beginner level through way more well-experienced. And that's how we work together, helping each other. So people do different scales. And we've heard things like NMRA is only HO. Well, if you look at the magazine lately, we've been branching out more with featuring things like S scale and different gauges and different layout types, especially in Europe, where people don't really have the space. They're more into the modular type stuff thing or a shelf layout, and that's fine. And I plan on starting small just to kind of practice working on things. I've got some kits to build, and I'm not ready for a huge layout, and that's fine. You don't have to be. We're not all experts, but we're in this organization to help one another. So make sure people realize you do not have to be an expert or have a huge layout or any layout in order to join and get valuable knowledge from joining the NMRA. If you have enough members, consider forming SIGs, which are special interest groups. Eric mentioned O Scale Central. That's one of our special interest groups. We now have a Women in Model Railroading special interest group. If you go on our website under SIGs, you'll see the full array of all the different special interest groups that are currently available. And although we would like all the members to be NMRA members, they don't necessarily have to be in a SIG. So the hope there then is you bring them, get them to sign on as a member. Try to attend a convention or a meet or something outside of your region. And communicate with other regions on ways that they've improved things. So, like Andy doing the trifold. I mean, he could obviously use that as an example and ship it up to the SCR and say, hey guys, look what I did. And I know around here, I'm on the border of 2 divisions and 2 regions. So I like to go, a little bit west or south and see what other people are doing. And because I learned too. I'm a marketer by trade, not a model railroader, but I've come to love model railroading and the people who participate in it. And I've also found model railroaders on my street that I never knew existed. In fact, I've ran into quite a few of them, especially during COVID. So understand the skill levels, the interests, the needs of your members, and help them. That is what a big part of what the local division is for. It's for asking questions, it's for teaching, it's for connecting all the members together. We do have that reputation, as I said, about, some people think we're elitist or good old boys club or things like that. We're trying very hard to turn that perception around because we all know perception's reality. So it's up to the members, it's up to us to try to change that and be welcoming. Absolutely be welcoming. That's the number one thing you've got to be, and communicate with each other. It doesn't have to be a big fancy communication, but communicate things. Make sure people are getting emails. Check to make sure that the communication information that you have is correct. Because at the moment, stuff gets hand typed in, and occasionally, of course, there's mistakes made. We all do it. Just watch me with PowerPoint. So communicate. Don't be afraid to ask questions, especially the leadership of the divisions. And I know Bob is this way, and I know Andy's always willing to help too. They're there. Utilize them. Even if you can't make it to a meet, see if they'll do a virtual, and live, so that people who can't attend can also tune in via Zoom. What we did find during COVID is that members who can't travel for whatever reason, or the meeting's too far away, which I know for you guys down in Florida has been somewhat of an issue, even within the divisions, is some of the point A to point B could be 3 hours, 4 hours long. So the people that couldn't go were thrilled when we started doing Zoom, and then people have chosen to stay with hybrid. These people were sent emails. They were so thankful that they felt involved in the hobby again. They felt involved with the NMRA again. So we did learn some things during COVID. So if it's possible, you do a hybrid meeting. You get who you can there, and you leave a Zoom link open for people that want to just kind of tune in. Did it again. My space button's not working.
It's moved. Member benefits, PowerPoint and brochure.
No. it
Page
went back.
change.
There we go.
Yeah, okay.
Welcoming new members, as I previously stated, welcome, welcome, welcome. If you join an organization, no matter your age or sex, anything, and you're meeting a bunch of new people, for some people it's easy. You can toss me into a room with 10,000 people and I'm fine. Others not so much. So if you join, one sure way to lose a member quickly is to not welcome them or not include them. So you should have some kind of welcome email that goes out. get their information is to headquarters as quickly as possible. The more people you can get to sign up online, the better. And now too, more people are weary about giving their credit card information, writing it on a piece of paper. So we've been doing QR codes at shows where people can scan, with their phone, and they can sign up right away. So this way they get processed quickly, and then hopefully they get their member cards and everything as soon as possible. Make sure they attend an event that's hopefully close to when they signed up. Get them on all your mailing lists. So if you do an email newsletter, make sure they're on that right away. When they show up somewhere, introduce them, have them say a little something about themselves, or if they're, on the shyer side, they can talk to one person and Bob can introduce them, for example. And you can also assign someone to help them. So this is something also that we're looking at on a national level as well, kind of a mentoring program. So here I would call it like the buddy system. You want to get somebody who's got similar interests, lives near them, whatever, but it's get them included, show them how to use the website, show them the interchange, show them everything they need to get to. And like I said, tell them about any upcoming events. As I mentioned briefly, the buddy or mentor system. So I went over this. It does definitely help members feel more welcome, because a lot of the members too, and a lot of the divisions still function where their supposed division meets are 5 guys meeting in a bar, to get away from their wives, as opposed to it actually being a meeting. And they could care less really if someone is new and wants to join in. They've got their little clique, and we're trying to overcome that. We want people to be welcoming. We want meetings to be useful in some way. So, and like I said, navigating the website and things like that, looking out for newsletters, making sure NMRA emails or division or region emails aren't going into their spam, because basically satisfied members are members who renew. So like I said, national can do so much with benefits and things like that, but the local level is where the rubber meets the road. So their experience takes place mostly at the local level. Now we have had people who didn't renew. They just want the magazine. They don't want the membership, or they're a lone wolf modeler and they still pay their dues, and then that's fine. You're going to have people like that. But it's up to you guys. You're representing the NMRA. That's why, I don't know if you've seen the badge that says I am the NMRA. Basically, because you are all the NMRA. You are representing the NMRA to other modelers. So I know not everybody's extroverted like me, thank God. But you're gonna have to reach out a little bit and put your best effort forward to really, really welcome new members. So like I said, the EOM reports are going to be changing slightly from what I've heard, but the basic email or the takeaway you want to get from these reports, who is new, who's up for renewal, who's got a rail pass that's going to expire. Rail pass is a tricky thing. It's $20 for 9 months. You get the magazine. But a lot of people take advantage of that because of the price. And a lot of
The magazine is only digital, correct?
no, it's still paper too. You have to pay extra for the paper.
Okay.
So, and there are still people that want paper, and that's fine if they want to pay for it. But the digital is super easy to read. It's done on a professional platform. I think it's great. We can get more content, and like I said, you get it earlier than the print magazine. You can take it with you everywhere because it's right on your phone. You can bookmark things. You can walk around your layout with your phone, as opposed to, looking at a magazine, paper magazine, and trying to replicate something you see in the magazine. So Yes, there are people who just want either the digital or paper magazine. Rail Pass, a lot of times too, what happens is a region or a division will subsidize $20 and they'll kick in 10. So you get somebody at a show, $10, 9 months, hey, why not? I'll do it. But what we're getting there it seems to be more people who like the deal and aren't necessarily serious about the NMRA or joining. So they do their 9 months, they get what they can. And so we're looking for quality, preferably quality and quantity, but we would rather have quality members that renew as opposed to someone who's at a show and sees the deal and takes it. Again, if somebody didn't renew and purposely didn't renew, reach out and ask why. We're going to be doing that from national as well. Send a quick email, pick up the phone. You'd be surprised how many people just simply forget. We're going to be upgrading our renewal reminder process as well. But right now, they're supposed to get a letter, I think 90 days out, 60 days out, and 30 days. People forget, they go in the paper pile somewhere, and you remember when you go to log into the website and you can't get in. And then you're like, oh, maybe I forgot. So a lot of times it's just people who forgot. So sending that email, picking up the phone is a great thing to do. People like that personal connection. Again, it shows you care. You want to have good relationships with these people. And the member info, that's the key. When I was at the SSR region convention a couple of years ago, someone was there, and as people were checking in, they were also verifying their email address, their phone numbers, their mailing addresses. And that's something you gotta kind of hound people on because they don't always think to do it. If we don't have the correct info, you're missing out on a lot. So whether that's from a national standpoint or a local level. Get on social media. I know not everyone's a fan of social media. I have no choice but to be on it, but I try to post things like pictures of my daughter. But there are more and more divisions popping up on Facebook and Instagram. And now through the program Meta, you can actually merge the two accounts, Instagram and Facebook, and schedule posts and things like that. And if you need help with that, you need a tutorial, I'm more than happy to sit and walk people through it. But that's a great way to promote your division. It's a great way to promote events. If you want to do ads, you can spend, $5, especially since you can pick out keywords, you can do geography. But that's a great way to show off. It's the public face of the division. It's a great way to put stuff that you're doing on there, pictures. You can even do member bios. The sky's the limit. You can do live events on Facebook. And like I said, now with Meta, if you post something, you can also have it post to Instagram. Facebook, you're going to get a slightly older demographic. Instagram, and if you want to venture into TikTok and whatever else, you can do that too. That's where you're going to get a lot of the younger demographic, because younger people are starting to veer away from Facebook, and they're using more, Snapchat, TikTok, Instagram. I don't even know what other programs are out there. YouTube channels are useful too. The NMRA has one. I've noticed a bunch more regions and divisions have them. So you can put up a recording like this on your YouTube channel. You can choose to make it private or not. So all of the clinics we do, NMRAX, everything is on our YouTube channel. I also think you should connect and follow, model railroaders you're aware of, manufacturers, clubs, anything connected with the hobby. Follow and like other divisions and region pages, join groups. So the page would be more like the business face, and then the group can be private. And you can send messages through there as well. So like I said, you stay in touch with our divisions. It's a communication tool. Now we have the interchange, so you can do the interchange more. And it gives you the ability to promote yourselves, do some advertising, like I said, all very low cost, does not have to cost a ton at all. And obviously the accounts are free. If you do have someone who's running a social media account, always make sure, just as a little side note, that you have 2 administrators on the account, because if something happens to one, or he suddenly decides he hates trains, you could end up with no Facebook, because they can easily delete it. So you want at least 2 admins who have control over the account, the entire account, so that you don't end up losing your account. So how does it social media benefit the division? You're educating yourselves by following other groups. There are tons and tons of model railroading groups out there. And they focus on different scale, different gauges, different railroads, different geography. Hello, Thunder. You can connect anytime. So it doesn't matter, what time of day it is. Facebook isn't going away. You're increasing your visibility without paying a whole lot of money. So again, try following people, and people who like your posts, things like that. You can invite them to like your page. So there's all kinds of little tools that you can start adding people to your online community. Obviously, in the hobby, sharing knowledge is huge, and building relationships. So if someone comments on something or sends your page a message, get back to them. None of this is really hard. It's just having volunteers, and with volunteers, I recommend too, you try to split up the tasks as much as you can. People tend to, get overwhelmed if it's one big task. If you break it up into little pieces, a lot of times people are more willing to volunteer. So this information is, I haven't updated it lately, but we've got the National Model Railroad Association page. We've got Twitter. We also have the NMRA community group, which is not just NMRA members. It's open to anyone interested in modeling. But since I've come on, we've grown tremendously in the social media arena. A lot of the posts and things that are being posted by model railroaders, members and non-members, are much more positive, which is wonderful, because that's a complete 180 from when I started. So, and we are on Twitter. We have someone who just manages Twitter. We also have a social media admin team. So with a group of 21,000 something people, we have a group who's kind of monitoring what's going on and accepting people into the group. We have our YouTube page. We do have Instagram, and Instagram has gone up a lot. YouTube has gone up a lot. And YouTube, once you reach 1,000 subscribers, you can monetize it. So as long as you're not using any copyrighted music or anything like that, you can start monetizing when people click on your videos. And you can promote one social media channel or avenue on another social media avenue. Follow us on this, like us here, visit us here and subscribe. So you're getting a lot more bang for your buck, because there are modelers on all of these platforms. So doesn't mean that you can, necessarily need to ignore the traditional means of promotion. So some places have like local TV stations that are more than happy to bring on somebody interesting, and that costs you nothing. So reach out and see what's out there for that. Radio stations. If there's a local radio station, a lot of times, they'll do a promo for you. Newspapers, whether it's paper or online, a lot of groups or papers or publications in general have a add an event or submit an event or submit an article, and you can advertise events through there. And then a lot of that stuff gets gathered by other apps and things like that. There's one called Nextdoor. People advertise on that. So you end up, through one way or another, you're getting NMRA in your face, which is the idea. So, and you can do online ads. especially since you're a nonprofit, I would look out for special deals for nonprofits, which there are a bunch of. You also have the luxury of not paying sales tax. So if you want to do like a Google Ads, a lot of times they'll start you out with like a nice credit, and you can come up with an ad and it'll go, all over. And then also the more you have to stay active on these things though. If you want to be on social media, no matter what channel it is, or what service it is, you've got to consistently be putting stuff out there. The more stuff you put out without being obnoxious, the more it shows up in other people's news feeds as something they might be interested in. We all have seen ads and we're like, why am I seeing this? Well, a lot of times it's because they've clicked on stuff or they've gone on to different model railroading pages or groups. And then obviously the algorithms learn what you like and don't like. And so the more stuff you get out there, the more chances you'll have to get in front of other people. So like I said, a lot of the stuff is local, it's free. Putting flyers up in stores, think of your municipal building, your town library, senior center. The churches, there's a lot of places that will let you put up flyers. If you are lucky enough to have local hobby shops, they're usually more than happy to advertise for you too, or even just leaving some NMRA brochures behind. Most of them are fine with doing that. And then what you can do is say, hey, if you need to buy anything, check out Joe's hobby shop down the street. So that was loud. So we have also groups of members who are doing podcasts, press releases. If something big is happening, you can put out a press release that can be anything from a big show to a convention. I can give you a format for press releases. And there are also reasonably priced companies that will spread out your press release. You can also email, as the NMRA does, if we have a press release, like we had it for, I guess, the National Convention, we had it for something else. We send it into a lot of the model railroading magazines because we have relationships with a lot of the magazines. And if we ask nicely, sometimes they'll throw stuff in there. I know Cowcatcher in Texas generally will. Model Railroad Hobbyists, there's a bunch of others. So, but reach out to them. If you need their contact information, let me know. Local hobby shops, community events. I mean, there are things from tricky trays to, I don't even know, socials to 4th of July event. I mean, every town has something that they do, and be a part of it. Sometimes it's just, it's like a festival and people can, set up tents for their businesses and things like that. Join in. Usually the table or the tent space is I don't know, $35-40. And you'll generally get tons of local people that are coming through. Again, presentations at libraries, a lot of them will let you build a display to showcase. Museums. I know in my town, we have a ton of active adult communities, and they all have their own clubhouses and events and things like that. Modular, like I said, modular lab displays placed locally. Library is a great place. Municipal building. Heck, I mean, you could place them in a school as well, without targeting youth, but you can, have it in there. Do a lot of the, like Michael's stores and Home Depot and all of these places offer teaching events. Sign up for one of those at one of your local stores and teach somebody how to build a structure or make a tree or anything else that we would normally have a clinic about. But again, you're local and you're getting in front of people. Free local guides, like I said, we have Next Door, it's called, and it's an app. It's available all over the country. Let's see, radio stations, newspaper, VA hospitals are another suggestion that was given from a few of our veterans. And you have guys that are in the VA hospital, they're undergoing treatment for something, rehab, and a lot of them are doing models. but usually it's like airplanes, things like that. Why can't we go in and give them train stuff? Because basically it's, you know, using their hands, and then when they come out of the rehab, or whatever treatment they're on, there's a community waiting for them when they get out, when they're done. So, and I know that's important for a lot of veterans. So that's another angle to go to. And that, again, you're touching various age groups. So it's not all about the older community. Yes, again, communication, division leaders should check in with the region. Now I know in the Sunshine region, you guys are pretty region heavy. More stuff happens at the region level sometimes than at the division level, but just make sure you check in with the people above you for any news or updates, because I've said it a zillion times. I can write it, I can email it, I can put it on Facebook, I can put it in the magazine. I can't make you read it. So don't assume everybody's reading everything that you're sending. Most people need to see things numerous times before it actually clicks. So make sure that you're communicating, put notifications out multiple ways. And if you notice people aren't replying, aren't responding, make sure the information you have on them is correct. You can speak to other groups in the community. We have, I don't even know, there's all kinds of community things here, and they're always looking for speakers, always looking for something interesting. So, don't hesitate to reach out to groups and let me know what you need. Doesn't guarantee you're going to get it, but, because I obviously have my stuff too, but I want to know what issues you're having. What are you constantly hearing over and over and over again? What would you like to have to promote yourselves? And let me know. And because like I said, we're working on a lot of national things, which will trigger down and flow down to the local levels. But certain areas have certain needs that others don't have. So obviously I'm always here. You can reach out. I try to get back to people fairly quickly. Sometimes I get a little bogged down, but generally I try to respond within a few days. So, and I'm also available Zoom, phone. Just more on, I can't hammer this home enough, is just staying up to date, keeping things updated, checking the website, connecting with other divisions, checking with the region, following the NMRA on social media, reading things that we send out, share things we send out. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that either. As long as it doesn't take you into the members side of the website, share information. Like I now share stuff with people that I met who are model railroaders, and now they're getting, Garden State Division newsletters, and they're getting the NER newsletter, and hopefully they'll come to an event and join. But you'd be amazed at how many model railroaders there are probably within 5 minutes of your house that have no idea. They may not even know who the NMRA is. So, which we'll be working on too with new branding. Now, my pet peeve with trade shows and booths is seeing a bunch of guys sitting behind a table talking to each other as people continue to walk past the booth. There's no one to greet them. There's no one to stop them. There's no one to say, hi, have you heard of the NMRA? Here's what we do. So, and also learn about the show beforehand. Is it mostly a family show? Is it more for serious model railroaders? Is it more of like a swap meet? So you get an idea about, who's going to be there and the age ranges and the backgrounds. Register for events early if you want to have a booth, and that way you get a better location. So obviously the key is to get in a high traffic location, not in a back corner. As many people, you want to get as many people walking past you as possible. Figure out what you want to accomplish. Do you just want to share things? Do you want to get new members? Do you want to just publicize your division or the NMRA or the hobby? And like I said, publicize it. Look at all the free resources out there, or even ones that just cost $5-10 and use them. Do something interactive, have a time saver, be building something. It attracts people over to the booth. Heck, a bowl of candy will attract people over to the booth. You just have to grab them before they run away with it. So yeah, having something interactive, having the video playing, the recruiting video, have a sign up sheet, for people who are just interested, they're not ready to sign up, they'd like to learn more. Get their information. I was shocked at how few areas actually do this, including national. So you have a little sign up sheet, would you like to be on our mailing list? And we even have a little disclosure statement we can give you that promises we're not going to sell your information to third-party groups, stuff like that. But if they're interested in learning more, why not get their information and send them out a communicate? Hey, we're having a meeting. Hey, we're doing this, or we're doing a virtual thing. Come join up. You can offer a giveaway, do raffles. You can have people vote on things. We at the Springfield show in Massachusetts, we had the Northern Utah division there with their new pizza box program, which is aimed at families, and that'll be rolling out to a division near you this year. And we had people vote on the best little pizza box sized diorama or model, and it was a running and scale little layout. So they're going to win a gift certificate. Have your materials, make sure you've got all your materials there, and host virtual, I've said this before, host virtual events, even if the in-person events are now going again. I think pretty much every division has gone back to in-person. But like I said before, don't be afraid to do a hybrid, because you're getting members who, for whatever reason, they can't make it to the meetings. And they still feel that connection, even if it's over a computer. It's better than, being alone. So, and you need to be in front of the booth, shaking people's hands, wear a pin. We've got pin designs, sticker designs. We've got templates for tablecloths, but reach out, say, hey, have you ever heard of the NMRA? Let me talk to you. That's why it's important to have people in front of the booth, not sitting down looking disinterested. I've walked past booth before at shows because the people are just sitting there talking amongst themselves, and I almost feel like I'm intruding if I stop. So we don't want to be that group of people. Meetings, everything kind of follows the same formula. Advertising. I also recommend that if you're doing a business meeting, you either do it separately from the division meet, because not everybody wants to sit through a business meeting. So either separate those meetings from your division meets, or do them at a separate time that day. So you want to try to offer something hands-on to people. Usually what my division does is we'll have clinics in the morning and maybe some hands-on stuff. And then we have lunch, and then we go on layout tours at people's houses. So, and then we're always moving where our division meet is, so that it people are able to get to them. So you get to see different layouts. Sometimes there's, again, special things that NMRA has access to. So offer incentives for members to bring guests. We do have the 3 strike policy, but that's 3 meetings someone can come to prior, to deciding. So I don't know, give them a tchotchke, give them a shirt, give them something, if they come. Free drink, who knows? The other thing you can do is hold joint meetings with a neighboring division if your region is set up that way. I know Sunshine Region isn't necessarily that easy to do, but where I am, like I said, I'm on the cusp of the New Jersey division and the Garden State division. So we do a joint meet once a year, and we get members from both associations. We also allow people to sign up for another division's newsletter through ours. And again, it's all New Jersey. We're all NMRA members. So more members in the NMRA is better for all of us. So don't hesitate to promote, you meet somebody and they're not close to you. Hey, let me give you so-and-so's information. They're near you. Try to have an annual social event. I went to the Western New York Division's picnic this past summer and had a blast. So it was at an old train station and they had speakers and they had things for kids and everybody brought their families, they brought food. It was a great time. And you can talk about modeling, obviously, but you can also just hang out with each other as people. And I already mentioned the hybrid virtual meetings. So one thing I hear about a lot is my division doesn't have a lot of money, or my region doesn't have a lot of money. And if we charge people for things, they're not going to renew. So use meetings as a way to fundraise. I mean, at our meetings, everybody throws a couple bucks into a cup when we get in. There's donuts and coffee, and that supposedly covers that. Or charge a small entrance fee or a donation. Remember, all donations are tax write-offs because we're a nonprofit. But you can do that with fundraising. If you're a 501c3, a lot of the social media platforms allow you to fundraise, like Facebook. Instead of having a send message or whatever button on your page, it'll say donate. National is still getting to that point, but it is available. And you will find people that will just donate. So it doesn't hurt. Like I said, if it does no harm, give it a try. You can have a division library that people can check stuff out of for a small fee. To save costs, I know a lot of people are having problems finding locations for division meets that don't cost an arm and a leg. If it's feasible, have it at a member's home. You can try again. You can try library rooms, senior centers, municipal centers, church basements. There are a lot of places. There's clubs. If they're not being used, we'll let people have a meeting there. We have an agreement right now with Northlands trains here in Jersey, where if you're in this area, you can use their spare rooms to build your layout if you want. But we would always have a free meeting space there. And if you go visit there, NMRA members will get a discount and things like that. Jim Zinser, great resource. He does the division car in the magazine every other month. He gets pretty much every division newsletter there is. So he's a good one to talk to and bounce ideas off of. Because a lot of times he'll have seen something that a division did and it would work great for your division as well. So Jim is always eager to help. Great guy. So reach out to him, and you can also submit stuff too. Think about, getting your region or your division to submit articles to the magazine, to other magazines. And if you do it to other magazines, what we ask just is that, you make sure that the NMRA is mentioned. Obviously you get the credit, but we would love it if you'd also put, member of the National Motor Railroad Association. And as I mentioned with the YouTube, there are monetization options on numerous platforms, especially because of the nonprofit status. And there are also other nonprofit programs. Like I said, you can look into those. There's a lot of stuff out there for nonprofits that is little to no cost, especially since we're an educational nonprofit. So there are things there too that you can investigate. Special cases. Now, most divisions have at least one of these, if not more. But these are the things you want to look at, especially when you're looking at retention. Is it a large geography? Now, you guys, like I said, your divisions are so large at the moment that you live in one side of the division and they are hosting a meeting down on the other side. You're never going to get there, especially if they're not rotating the meet locations throughout the division area. And I know Northern Division is quite wide. So so that's obviously something that needs to be accounted for. If there's little activity, obviously we can't decide where members' divisions end up being. That's part of the importance of why I come talk to the divisions, because, you know, a new member joins and he ends up in the Northern Division and Bob is like, I don't care, no big, you know. The level of activity of the division does matter. So again, welcoming people, making sure you don't have to have an event every month, but make sure you have something going on at least every quarter. You also obviously have areas where it's sparsely populated. Even within a division, you may have 80% of your members live in Jacksonville and 20% are in the Tallahassee area. So, you know, think about ways to help improve activity throughout the division. Lack of volunteers is something that I hear a lot. There are also volunteer organizations that will loan you or give you volunteers if you're a nonprofit. So play around on Google, look for things like that. I know the Northern Utah division utilizes things like that. And I think the search terms were nonprofit and volunteers. So it's possible you can pull somebody in to help out, maybe a social media person. Keep using Zoom, do like Andy's doing, where you're doing, you know, the virtual clinics, and then another one will be in person. And so change things up. Again, try to rotate the location so you're hitting every area of your division, especially if you have a large division. Share responsibilities for volunteers. Like I said, maybe instead of having one social media person, you have a web guy, you've got someone who's doing Facebook, Instagram, someone else is doing Twitter, things like that. So like I said, it helps a lot when the position work can be spread out amongst more than one person. So talk to other divisions, best practices. You see one division all the time. In the past, a lot of times it's been like the Piedmont division in Georgia. And it was like, okay, well, what are you guys doing to be so successful or to get so many people? And they have different events and they have their training camp and their heritage days, I guess, where they go to different layouts all the time. Oh, pilgrimage, the Piedmont pilgrimage. So things like that, if you're able to do them. And again, just welcome and include new members. That is the best way to make sure they remain members. And that's pretty much it for now.
So Christina, real quick, I know my wife's getting ready to light off this her cookie thing that she's doing here. So I'll try to make this quick. So I know that the NMRA provides monies to like re-rail people or to bring in like you had members that have like dropped off over the last couple of years and you just want to have an NMRA social get together event, something to bring those members back into the fold. I know that the NMRA offers like a $200
the retention the retention matching fund. So if you hold any kind of event that is recruitment or retention, I actually think it's more retention. You can put in your expenses up and you will get up to $200 back from National for holding an event. And $200 will pay for a decent amount of stuff, especially if you can find a company to donate things, donate kits, donate trees, whatever. Yes, you can get, every division can get up to $200 back for any kind of event that helps retention.
And then I know also you kind of hit on it, but do you already have a canned survey for people? I noticed when we look at the EOM that you have the people who have dropped off like in the last 6 months, last 60 days, last 6 months, last year.
Mhm.
So do you already have a canned survey already prepared that we can use either regionally and or divisionally?
Yeah, we just came up with one. We came up with one. We just sent out the test to like 20 people recently who did not renew. We've gotten, I think, 5 responses back. Most of them are prices too high. Like I said, one person just wanted the magazine only, but that gives us ideas too. Like, do we offer, which has been kicked around, different types of memberships, different levels of membership. I will send you that survey. Because it's already done and it might only need some minor tweaking to make it for a region or a division, which I can do and then share it. So.
And then there were some questions in the chat. One of them was if they have members whose information is incorrect, who do they send that to? Now,
Headquarters.
That's what I told them. So either call headquarters or send it to Jenny, NMRA.
Jenny, Susan, either one of them will update information. Like I said, we're working on bringing the rest of the NMRA processes into the at least 20th century, hopefully the 21st. But and Gordy's been great with helping to push through a lot of those initiatives. A lot of this stuff has been, I'll be honest, has been in the lineup, has been in my marketing plan since I started, but it was, a lot of it was being told 20 reasons why I can't do something. And one of those reasons has been, that's not how we've always done things. Forget how we've always done things. Time to break the mold. So hopefully it'll be simpler, you'll have less mistakes. But yeah, if you do find mistakes, and also make sure you let your members know too, that if they have changes, they can send them either to Bob or to the region president, and you guys will make sure it goes to the right place. So, because you should also be made aware of any kind of new updated information for your own, business purposes. Yes, Chip.
You made a remark about brochures, flyers. The last train show we had down here, I didn't know that you offered them. I printed up my own and put them on the table.
Good for you.
I just, I got to do something to try to make it grow. Can I get a sample pack, or I'd like to get them at every possible train show down here in Florida.
Oh,
Maybe
yeah.
every division sends them out to every division. And then if there's a show coming up, we get them out there.
Yeah. And usually, as soon as somebody knows about a show, they contact headquarters and they have the stuff within a few days. What I can do is, because I don't know if Jenny's just going to randomly send out to every division if it's going to sit there, but I will have something sent to you, Chip.
Thank you.
That you can see what comes in the box. You can obviously share that with the rest of the region.
Yep.
And obviously, if there are shows coming up, by all means, contact headquarters and they will send stuff out to you. So not everyone is aware of that service that we offer. And so, no, I will make a note. And I got to talk to you anyway, so.
Okay.
From your email. And then Mr. Speed also told me I needed to talk to you about getting you on the interchange.
Yes.
We've been
I've been working hard rebuilding the website right now.
I've been talking to every
Thank you.
one of our members about getting on the interchange. So
Yeah.
it's a process, but just got the president on, and the others will, hopefully they'll follow.
Yes,
So,
yes. And I mean, I'm more than happy to talk to a group of you at once if you want, or individually, and get you all set up. So it's definitely worth it. The even as a convention committee, you're planning your region convention, you can do your own server on Discord. We've got one for the Texas Express. We've got one for limited model railroading. So you can even do one for SIGs. So, and we have, tech people who take care of the setting up side of it. But I can get you all logged in and help you set up your preferences, your notifications. So, and I will have a promo pack sent to you, Chip.
Thank you.
And then also, I know you talked a little bit about social media. One of the things, I just did an article for the SER region, as a matter of fact. Instead of the SSR, I did it for the SER. And we talked about, the social media and which social media platforms are the fastest growing, which is some of them stagnated, others are just launching. And right now, YouTube and Reddit are the two that are just ramping up hard.
Reddit took off when those novice investors did something and ended up making a ton of money on some kind of stock. But yeah, Reddit is important too. So that's one you might want to look at. YouTube, definitely. Yeah. I mean, YouTube is used by all ages, all types of people, all backgrounds internationally. You can even have it set up so that it goes into the language the person is viewing on, what their home language is. So yeah, those are definite ones. I even get members who send me videos. There's a guy, Michael Collins, who's done, I don't know how many part series, and he emailed me, here's, can you transfer my latest video in the series from my page? And I have tools to do that, to download the actual video off of YouTube and repost it on our page. So yeah, check. My thing is go out and play, like go see what interests you, try all the different social media platforms. I personally am not going to involve the NMRA right now in TikTok, only because I don't trust what's going on. So I'm not taking any chances with the NMRA's information, but you'll see, Snap, yeah, Reddit, Snapchat, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter. I know, like Twitter here for moderators, there's a lot of moderators on it, but I know Gordy would say that Twitter in the UK is their preferred way to get, they lean more towards Twitter than certain other things. So yeah, and then there's also platforms. One example is Hootsuite, where you can load all of your social media platforms channels into one program and post stuff all at once to all of the platforms. That does cost money. It will cost less as a nonprofit, but then you can also manage. I mean, this is getting down to you're managing and looking at what people are sharing and what people are commenting and who's liking it. And I mean, that's kind of like, what you'd aspire to have. But yeah, pick out a few that you're comfortable with actually posting continuously. So I would start small and you can always add more.
Okay, and then the last thing, because we have to move on to Bob's presentation, is let's see. So I made a note here. So when we get those EOMs, on the EOM, it has a new member tab or new member list. And then it also has the re-rail list. And I think a lot of people don't get told, re-rail doesn't necessarily, it's not just necessarily somebody who was a member previously and then they went ahead and signed up again. It's also somebody who moved from New York to Florida, and now they're in, they've been re-railed to our group. So so it's really important that we use those EOMs and then send emails out to those new members and to the re-railed members, because frankly, at the last show I had a sit down with a guy just walked up and asked if he could sit at my table. And he said that he was from New York and nobody had talked to him about this event, or nobody had welcomed him. And so he just wanted to talk to somebody about things. So we sat and talked. We had a really great conversation. He renewed. He brought his friend on. His friend, signed up. So
Nice.
But it's just, talking to people and make sure that if you get that list, you need to make sure you look at the re-rail list and you look at the new member list and you send out something, especially as superintendents, if they're in your area, send out something. Now, our membership coordinator, I know he sends something out to, welcome them to our region. So, but if they're all
They
the way
should also get a division, something from the division. That would be
Right.
nice.
right. So
Yeah. No,
I had
that's
two members.
perfect example. Who was talking?
I said,
Okay.
I had two members, I had two members yesterday that I opened the new Facebook page last week. They found us and they had just moved down from New York. And no one contacted them. They had to contact me.
Yeah, and those are
So-
people you find out about. So that's where you get lucky, is someone approached you, Andy, someone approached you, Chip.
Yeah,
Think about how many we're missing.
right. Big problem. We're a small group
So
down here.
sometimes it's just little things that don't take a long time that you do that make or break someone's experience. And we
I
do get a
agree.
lot of people from our area moving down to Florida. Lots of people. So
So, all right, guys, does anybody else have any questions for Christina?
All good.
all right, well, marketing at NMRA.org. Bob, yes. Oh, you're waving goodbye. Yeah, my info's in the magazine, it's on the website, so always feel free. Thank you guys for having me. I'm going to turn everything
Thank you.
off before my lightning hits my house and
That knocked you off. All right.
Yes.
Bob, you are up next. Bob is the NMRA RAC director. And Bob, introduce yourself real quick to the group, and then let's talk about operations.
Okay, well, you might be asking, what does RAC director mean? It's the Regional Advisory Council, and that's the region presidents who elected me, and I try to represent them to the board. And so we meet with them virtually 3 or 4 times a year. So with that, let me get started, and I got to share the screen, right? And pick on that one and share it. There we go. That's what I wanted. Okay. The subject here is getting started in operations, and it's a very high level sort of look at things of the various issues you're going to face if you want to get started in operations. This thing is a okay. Spacebar doesn't do it. Right arrow doesn't do it. How do I advance it?
Just, you might have to click it with the mouse, but
Yeah, okay. No.
and I think it's
There
just
we go. There we go. We got it. Okay. I got to give you a little commercial here for EduTrain. EduTrain was an idea that came about 10 years ago. And the concept was you would have a number of clinics, such as this one, that could be available. They're available on the NMRA website on the members only part. And this clinic is very heavily annotated with my thoughts. And the idea was somebody could download it, study it, get in touch with me if they had questions, and then do a credible job of presenting it to their division. And that sort of worked until COVID. And then suddenly everybody realized, hey, we can just get the clinician himself to do it. And so here I am presenting the clinic that in theory, one of you could have downloaded and presented, but you get me instead. So here we go. Oh, and there are probably a couple dozen such clinics up there, and you can look at them. And again, if you see another one you want, get in touch with the author, and maybe he or she can present it for you. So end of commercial. Okay. What do I mean by operations? There are, I think, 13 people on this call. And if I asked all 13 of you what you thought about operations, I'd probably get 13 different answers. So to shortchange that process, I'm going to give you my idea of what operations is, and that's going to be what carries us forward here. To me, it means we run trains on our railroad, and we try to do it sort of like the prototype guys do it. Charlie Getz would say that this is all a joke because we can't run over and kill ourselves with our trains, but you know, it's still doing it as much like the prototype as is practical. And that leads to the next point, and that is, what is the business that railroads are in? And if I do this, you know, in front of a room full of people, I'll get some folks to say, oh, it's running trains, and others who take a little better look and they say it's providing a transportation service. And transportation services in the freight market, at least, could be trains, trucks, barges, pipelines, a whole bunch of things. But the railroad makes money by running trains, and they run a specific train at a specific time because that's where they're going to make their money. And that's really the basis for trying to simulate their operations. Okay, here we go. I got a number of topics I want to talk about. I'm going to spend a fair bit of time talking about what I call the global picture, and you'll see what that means in a minute. A passing reference to era. We'll talk a little bit about rolling stock. Rolling stock and era almost go together. We'll talk about car forwarding. A train comes into your yard. How do you know what you do with the cars? Well, there are systems that help you do that. What trains do you run and when do you run them? Putting together a train schedule. That can be an interesting process. And if you're running a freelance railroad, that's probably one of the hardest things. We'll talk about train dispatching systems. And again, these are somewhat era dependent, but we'll talk about how to keep the trains from smashing into each other. And then we'll talk about what it takes to staff an operating session. So with that, let's get into what I look at as the global picture. Few railroads are just completely isolated without a connection to the outside world. Yeah, there are some mining operations that might run from a mine to a smelter or from a mine to a power plant, but even they probably have some kind of a connection to get rolling stock in and out at the right time. With that being said, if you're going to build a layout, where is it going to fit on a prototype map of your part of the world? Are you going to model a piece of a prototype railroad? Well, just kind of highlight it with a marker and then look at it and ask which railroads connect to your railroad. It might be the same railroad at both ends. It might not be. And who knows? The sky's the limit when you do something like that. Now, why would you even want this kind of a connection? Well, it's a place for cars to go to and from. And one of the things I think about is, say you've got a widget factory on your railroad. You might get the raw materials for the widget in from someplace else. You build your widgets, and now you got widgets to ship, and the customer is someplace else. So those go back off through another connection to somewhere else in the world. In the same way, you can get cars from other railroads in. Say you're a Pennsy fan, but you want to see a UP car. Well, you do that through the connections between the railroads. In today's freight world, we see a number of jointly operated trains that work only because of connecting lines, intermodal trains that run from coast to coast, for example. And, you know, if you're in Pennsylvania and you're watching some of those trains go over Horseshoe Curve, you can recognize the containers as being something that's on a UP train. And so it's a UP train at one point and an NS train at another point. Passenger trains did this many years ago in the pre-Amtrak era. It was very obvious. New York to Florida trains would run the Pennsy to Washington and the RF&P, and then one of the coastline trains and maybe even the FEC. But it was several railroads that were involved. Now, a final point here on this global picture thing. If you're going to build a freelance railroad, you almost have to rewrite railroad history. If you say your railroad is going to interchange with a prototype railroad, right there, you've just rewritten history. So just go ahead and do as much of that rewrite as it takes to make things practical for you. Now, even if you're going to look at a prototype railroad, there's a number of ways of thinking about it. This little diagram is a schematic that characterizes many railroads up until there started to be a lot of mergers, which kind of makes this a little hard to see. But in the 1960s, for example, and if you think about, say, the Pennsylvania Railroad, you'll have lines coming in from New York and Washington, and they met at Harrisburg. They ran common to Pittsburgh, and then they split up again to go to Chicago and St. Louis. And the New York Central did the same thing. Albany and Boston, or I'm sorry, Boston and New York got together at Albany, and when they got to Cleveland, they spread back out. And, you know, a very common theme. And what was going on in the middle there? It was usually some kind of either an advantage or a disadvantage to running trains altogether. For the New York Central, it was a water level route. For the Pennsylvania, it was just one line over the mountains. And what we'll do is we'll look at a couple of model railroads that were designed to operate on different parts of this kind of a schematic. The first one I want to look at is the late Clint Foster's Chesapeake and Ohio Railroad. Now, Clint lived in Ronceverte, West Virginia, which is along the C&O, and he modeled the C&O in 1950, and he recognized fully well that that railroad went from Washington to Cincinnati. But he only modeled the part that went through the New River Gorge at the eastern end at Hinton and the western end at Hawks Nest, West Virginia. But he realized full well that his railroad would connect to other railroads at Washington and Cincinnati to the eastern and western and midwestern roads, respectively. So he had this all figured out. Now, if you think about this railroad, there is one big piece of every model railroad that is missing on this railroad, and that is the big classification yard. There isn't one. The C&O had one at Clifton Forge, Virginia, and one at Russell, Kentucky. But this railroad runs at the bottom of the New River Gorge. There's no room to put anything there. There are some small yards for coal marshaling and a little bit of switching, a small yard at Hinton, but otherwise, there's really no big yard at all, you know, on his railroad. Oh, and I should point out that he was using the kind of the middle stem of the C&O. Now, if we go out to my buddy Jim Rollwage lives in Wilmington, Ohio, but he thinks the Union Pacific is the only railroad that is worth modeling. And he's modeling, again, 1950, just like Clint. And he's modeling the line from Denver up to LaSalle, Colorado. At one time, it was called the Denver Pacific. Today, it is Union Pacific. But it's really kind of a stem off of the transcontinental line. He sees trains going up to LaSalle, and they can turn right and go to Julesburg, Colorado, and get on the Transcon there, go east, or turn left and go up to Cheyenne and get on the Transcon and go west. Down at the bottom there, you see connections to the Kansas Pacific, which is today, it's the Union Pacific line from Denver to Kansas City, the Rock Island, which was in play then. What he doesn't show are the Rio Grande, the Santa Fe, the Burlington. He says that would just be too much, and he's kind of a less is more guy. And I'll tell you what, there's plenty of activity in his Denver yard without those other three railroads. So again, this is one of those little stems that comes together to join the main line. So as opposed to Clint's idea of the middle section. Now, let's talk about a freelance railroad. My Pennsylvania Southern runs from, in my mind, from Pittsburgh to Chattanooga, although my basement's only big enough to get as far as Waynesburg, Pennsylvania, which is about 60 or 70 miles from Pittsburgh. It's 1980 on my railroad, and what I've done here is I have appropriated the Pennsylvania Railroad's Chartiers branch from Pittsburgh to Washington, Pennsylvania, and then I straightened out the Waynesburg and Washington narrow gauge for the rest of the trip, and then it goes on down, and we don't worry about the rest of it there. We have a line that runs west, branch line that runs west to Wheeling, West Virginia. The dotted line for the real N&W illustrates where the then in 1980 N&W ran into Pittsburgh. They had a yard there that was a nice big flat spot up in the hills. Pittsburgh is pretty hilly. And my history says that they were made an offer they couldn't refuse for their flat land and sold it. And then they got onto the Pennsylvania Southern at Bridgeville and went into the Pennsylvania Southern's yard. And in fact, the real N&W and the real Pennsy did have a track interchange at Bridgeville. You'll notice that farther down it says the N&W branch comes in here, and I've had to rewrite history a little bit more. I have a clinic that talks about the evolution of my railroad, and that's where this comes into play. In my mind, the N&W decided that there wasn't much on their line west of Pittsburgh, so they abandoned it. And then they got into the area through Wheeling, West Virginia. So I've really rewritten the poor N&W and their history. In the real world, the that old N&W line is now today's Wheeling and Lake Erie, and they still do use that flat yard in the hills. So I see my railroad connecting with Conrail, with B&O and the Chessie system, the Norfolk and Western, the Pittsburgh and Lake Erie, all these railroads that don't exist anymore under those names. Farther south, I see it going across West Virginia and crossing a B&O line, the C&O line, the N&W line, the G&G, which is the Grafton and Greenbrier, another freelance railroad. I see it interchanging probably with the Clinchfield, the L&N, the Southern, and probably the Seaboard Coastline, and something else that I'm sure I've forgotten. So just as the other guys have done it with real railroads, I've played kind of loose here and made my own connections. I think we used the term beyond the basement in talking about one of these, and that was a term coined by the late Alan McClellan to describe interchanging with railroads that aren't in your home. And you do this with staging yards. And I look at staging yards, and as I think others do, as a source of trains, a place where trains can come onto your railroad from, and a place they can leave your railroad and go to. And in terms of thinking about how you want to design one, you've got all kinds of options here. They might be open and very visible, or hidden. They might have scenery, or maybe not. They might be stub-ended. They might be double-ended, and if so, that usually is a way of connecting both ends of a railroad main line to one common staging yard. Or they might be return loops. You might actively switch cars or handle things in those staging yards, or maybe you don't. All kinds of choices. Clint's staging yard was a big double-ended thing that served both ends of the railroad. When I took this picture, Hinton, West Virginia was right behind me. Now on the C&O at Hinton, trains going east had been running along the river, and the local steam locomotives were suited for the water level route. But at Hinton, they start up into the mountains, so there was a locomotive change. So a train would arrive from the left side of this yard and go over towards the end with Hawk's Nest. And then the locomotives would be taken off, turned, and that train would be turned to go back the other direction, again, with the mountain climbing engines. And a similar process occurred for trains coming in from Hawk's Nest. The water level engines would be taken off of those and then put on a train going back the other direction. So it was very actively managed. What's a little fuzzy is down in the lower right corner there. There's a little bit of a hint of something else. And Clint managed to put in a number of the branch lines with passenger service. And that was another staging area that was very heavily handled. You would turn trains there and get them ready to go back out the other direction. It was a full-time job down there, as well as another one for running his staging yard. Jim's Union Pacific is a little bit different. The end of it by Denver that has the Rock Island and the Kansas Pacific in it is definitely stub-ended, and it's somewhat hidden. What you see here in the near track is what is going to be going east up through Julesburg, and on the back track is the Cheyenne stuff, and eventually there will be another town on top of this, so it'll all be hidden. He has a couple of double-ended tracks. The reason he doesn't have more is that there's a part of the house structure sticks into a staging yard, and these tracks all stub up against that. He has a couple that run around that, and he uses those for continuous running, but not for anything really operational. And I've got pretty much hidden staging. It's all stub-ended. This one is at the south end of my railroad. It's under the big classification yard, and it looks a little ominous, but the worst thing that ever happened in here was one day a train was coming out, and there were two 65-foot mill gonds coupled together, and they derailed. And I reached in to re-rail them and realized they were both stuck together. And what happened was I had been ballasting some track up above, and some glue leaked down, and something you just couldn't do if you tried. It dripped right on the coupler and glued the two cars together. So I picked them out, swapped couplers, and all was well. But that was the worst thing that's ever happened in here. I do have another staging yard that's even worse than this, and we did have a massive derailment in there that derailed everything in the whole yard, so we just had to declare force majeure that night. So what will your layout look like? This gets into a little bit of scenic considerations. And certainly it depends upon where you are and what you're trying to accomplish. Clint's layout is at the bottom of the New River Gorge, and there's tracks on both sides of the railroad there. There were tracks on both sides of his layout. And we always joked about putting on our hip boots to go in there and run his railroad because we were standing in the middle of the New River. He even had it painted on the floor. Jim's Denver Pacific is in central Colorado, and that's high Western Plains. I guess the winds make it so that there are not many trees there. There's a lot of agriculture in 1950, and even a fair bit of coal mining, surprisingly. My Pennsylvania Southern runs from an urban Pittsburgh to a very rural southwestern Pennsylvania area with heavy industry in the north end, and then much less and coal mine and things like that towards the south end. I want to talk a little bit about the era. What year is it on your railroad? And it's like, duh, era can dictate your rolling stock choices. That's sure the case. Steam era, diesel era, early diesel, modern, yada, 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 and all the cars that go with it. Era can also affect scenic elements and track arrangements. And again, when I do this in front of a live crowd, I ask how many tracks go around the Horseshoe Curve in Pennsylvania, and I get a chorus of 3s and I get a chorus of 4s. And the answer is you're both right at different times. Up until about 1980, it was 4 tracks, and then Conrail ripped one up. And since then, it's been 3 tracks. Structures change over time. You take a look at stations. There were new designs that would come out at various times, and stations built after that would have that kind of architectural features. Industries will depend on era. It's kind of interesting to watch oil movements. During the Second World War, a lot of the stuff moved by rail, and then it kind of got away from that. Then we had a spell of it more recently, but we kind of got away from that as new pipelines were built. Today, there's a lot of ethanol that moves by rail from the plants that make stuff in the Midwest. That's a relatively new thing. Milk was moved by rail in the past, but I don't think there's much of that today. And we can even look at era and understand what dispatching systems might have been in use at various times. And rolling stock, I kind of alluded to this earlier, but try to avoid the gross anachronisms. We talk about boxcars or truss rod boxcars running with double stacks. And some folks will say, yeah, you can't pull double stacks with a steam engine, but you got to tell that to the Union Pacific because they do it. I'm using 1980 as an example of what I do on my railroad. The incentive per diem car boom was just about done. That's a whole separate clinic, but what it amounted to was little railroads you never heard of build 100 boxcars. Rail boxes were built at that time, and they were just about all built by 1980. Conrail was only 4 years old. Its cars were in paint transition. There were some that were fully painted, and there were still a lot of cars in good old New York Central and Pennsylvania Railroad paint. Locomotives, most of them I would say had been painted blue. The ones that weren't were patched, but it was very hard to find something that had not, that was still in its earlier paint scheme fully. GP50s were new. SD50s were in the future. Didn't see anything from Seaboard System or CSX or the merged Norfolk Southern because that hadn't happened yet. And all trains have cabooses, which make for wonderful end of train markers when you're coming out of a staging yard. So what does a fleet composition look like? Well, almost certainly you got a lot of home road cars. My Pennsylvania Southern is one of those things. And I had a visitor one day who dropped in and said, my goodness, you had to decal a lot of cars. And I agreed with him. Lots of cars. Smooth side cars are easier than rib side cars, trust me. I have fewer cars from the railroads that directly connect with mine, the N&W and Conrail and Chessie and so forth, and even fewer from the railroads that are farther away, the Union Pacific, the Southern Pacific, and the L&N stuff, or I'm sorry, the other stuff out west. Now, you can have some possible exceptions for unit trains, but you know, they're kind of wild cards. And obviously you want to have the appropriate cars to meet your industry needs. And you know, if you're heavy on coal mines, you're not going to try to supply them with auto racks. But this also applies to things like passenger trains. If you're running a commuter service, you're probably looking at high density coaches. If you're running something that might be a day-long trip, you might have lower density coaches and some kind of food service arrangement. And if it's an overnight, you might even have sleeping cars and a full dining car. So all of these things come into play in terms of what is going to be rolling on your tracks. Now, we get into another aspect of this. As I said earlier, you got a train that shows up in your yard. How do you know where the cars go? What's the yardmaster do? Well, there are a number of ways of handling this. We'll talk a bit about car cards and waybills. Car tabs, sometimes folks have little pieces of hardware or something on top of a car that indicates where they go. We can have switch lists, and then there's commercial software that ultimately generates switch lists. The car cards and waybills have been well documented in the model railroad press, and there's a picture here that's a little bit overexposed. The car card has information about the car itself, and it's usually something of the weight of a manila file folder, that kind of sort of thing. And it's folded up, and there's a piece of tape that goes around it to form a pocket that holds the waybill. And the waybill typically has either 2 or 4 destinations for the car. It logically routes it from one to the next, to the next, to the next, and back to the first. And when you get to one place, you just move it to the next number on the card. One of the problems you can have with this is if you don't ever swap the waybills around, that is to put a different waybill with that car, you might be able to pick up the repeating patterns. I operated on a layout that had one of my Pennsylvania Southern box cars, and when I worked this one particular town, if that car showed up, I just knew it was going to the lumber yard because the owner never replaced waybills. Now, in some cases that makes sense, but for a plain Jane box car, it's probably a bit unrealistic. This is fairly easy to set up. Not much to spend money on, some obviously, but you can even print some of these yourself. Moving on to switch lists. This is a piece of a switch list. This actually goes on well down below your screens. I just cropped it to make it fit, that I used to use on my railroad. And what this does is it lists all the cars and what city they go to. You take a look at the top left one there, that A box 51235 goes to Pittsburgh. Where in Pittsburgh, to what industry, doesn't matter. All the yardmaster's doing at this point is making sure that it is set aside to go to Pittsburgh. And the third one, or the fourth one down, is going to Canonsburg, and he just gets it on the right track to go to Canonsburg, and it's somebody else's problem to get it to the right industry. That, and none of that stuff would fit on this sheet anyway. So there are commercial software packages out there, and you can see the names. Some of them you pay for, some of them are open source, and the folks who pay for one will, be very partial to their system. Other folks see issues with all of them, and my problem is they tend to micromanage things. If you bring a car back that you weren't supposed to, they don't know what to do with it. They assume absolute perfection that way. The way you get around that, I guess, is to have a clerk who can update the computer. So, but these are all, they all generally do about the same thing in terms of giving you switch lists that you use. Train schedules. These again depend upon when and where you're going to run your trains. Obviously, prototype passenger trains have run on schedules. They still do. Employee timetables can sometimes be used as a guide for this, and especially if you go back and say in the pre-Amtrak era, a lot of freight trains actually had schedules, and they were used as such in the timetables. So a Other freight trains can be scheduled or they could be run as needed, depends upon how things work. Clint and Jim had the advantage of doing a prototype railroad, and they just used the prototype train schedules from their eras from 1950, and that let them set everything up pretty well. On the C&O layout, you knew when the George Washington was coming, and if you delayed it, God help you. So I developed mine using a little bit of some mathematical models that just worked to get things started, but eventually it developed into just a cycle that you go through a number of times with cars coming onto the railroad, going to industries, cars coming out of the industries and going off the railroad. And that tends to be a kind of a rinse, wash, and repeat sort of approach, but it works fairly well. This is a way of graphing your train schedule. This is just a small portion of mine. It extends way over to the right. What I have is a list of stations from top to bottom, and what you normally would see across the bottom would be a timeline. I don't have that on here because this whole thing runs on a sequence, and locals take a lot longer to run than some of these run-through trains. If you're not familiar with this thing, the line shows, let's take a look at that train 151 in red. At some time it's at the north end of the railroad, and at a later time it's at the south end, so it's a southbound train. And the other ones, like 122, is a northbound train using the same logic. Where you see the lines cross is where they meet. This is a single track railroad, and I think if you look at where all the lines are crossing, you'll see that there are passing sidings at Bridgeville, BRI, at Washington, WSH, and at Waynesburg, WBG. And so that has worked very well for me, but you can really see the progression of the trains this way. Another thing you can do is if you draw a vertical line, and count how many times it hits a train, that's how many throttles you'll need if you're going to run the schedule as printed. Something you might want to come up with is, I've heard it called a train procedure manual. That's a little formal, but at the very least, it's some kind of an idea of what each train is and what it does. And it can help you develop your operating scheme, but it can also help visitors begin to understand what their train does and why they're running it. It can take a couple of forms. Over on the right there is an employee timetable for my railroad. One of my operators put this together. He patterned it after a B&O timetable, and it covers just about everything you need on my railroad. Each train has a card like the one on the left that has train numbers. That's a turn. That's why it has two numbers. It's a Waynesburg turn. And it talks about what to do at each of the towns along the way. And then it has this ominous warning at the bottom that you still need a train order before you run your train. So these are the kinds of paperwork that I have that supports mine. Okay, let's get on to dispatching systems. The first one is Mother May I, and that is one that a lot of people look down their nose at. It's informal, it's simple. Paperwork, who needs that? But it has its place. My operators know my railroad pretty well, and if I have a session on a snowy evening and only a couple of guys show up, this is the way to do it. We can all run trains, and we can still run the schedule, and it works out well. Timetable and train order is the exact opposite of that. It's very prototypical. It can be hard to learn and very intimidating. One of the biggest problems with people is sometimes making them understand that their passenger train cannot leave a station early just because everybody got on, unless there's a special reason. They just got to wait. This was used up through the late 1970s, and the Southern Railway was using it into the early 1980s. I lived in Louisville at the time, and that's what ran through my backyard, and that's how they ran things. Later on, track warrants and direct train control, they're kind of variation on the same theme, replaced the timetable and train order. And a track warrant this is probably an oversimplification, but it's kind of a fill in the blank train order. It might have a long list of possible sentences that would appear in train orders. Dispatcher would tell you which ones are applicable. and give you the words to fill in. And it seems to be a lot easier to do than copying an entire train order. They still read them back, but that's how things are done today in many places, lower traffic places. Centralized traffic control is what you see on very heavily traveled main lines. And this is where dispatchers can set switches and signals. The train and the engineers then know what to do when they see them and can respond and prepare accordingly. This certainly is expensive because they need to have signals and they have to have detection equipment to detect where the trains are, and then the equipment to activate the switches. But it will allow high traffic levels. And for a real railroad, that's important. Presumably, the extra traffic is generating more revenue, and hopefully that cascades into the bottom line as a profit. On our model railroads, to do this, we would still have to buy signals and detection equipment and the ability to control the switches. And that can be expensive to implement, just like on the prototype. Unfortunately, we don't have any income coming in to defray that cost. So we can still do it if your means permit it. Depending upon your railroad, you might have a combination of these things. In the early 1980s, again, when I lived in Kentucky, the Southern Railway line south out of Cincinnati was CTC, but their line west of Danville, Kentucky, over to Louisville and on to St. Louis was timetable and train order. So again, depending upon what you're doing with branch lines, you can maybe have both. I use timetable and train order, but I don't have a timetable since everything runs in a sequence, so it's not quite so bad. I do give the orders to the crews before they get on the train. The other guys, Clint and Jim, used timetable and train order, but they had mostly trains on the timetable. So for them, it was a very different way of doing it. But it was the same, but different. What's it take to staff a railroad? Well, you probably want to have a dispatcher. Again, this dispatcher will authorize train movements in one way or another, setting signals, writing orders or warrants or whatever. A yardmaster will typically break up a train that has come in, sort out the cars, put together trains going out. In my case, there's a fair bit of industry around the yard, so they'll serve that as well. And then over the road train crews will do that, just operate over the road. They may be local to switch industries. They may do a coal mine or whatever. So depending upon how much of the stuff you've going on at one time, that's how many people you need. So what do you do now? I've given you all kinds of choices you have to make in terms of dispatching systems and car forwarding and whatever. Look at the prototype. Do it carefully and certainly safely. You don't want to get run over by a train in the process of doing it. You don't want to trespass. You can listen to the radio traffic with a scanner, or if you want to do it from someplace more distant, you'd be amazed at how much of this stuff now is available on the internet. The downside of that is that'll show you what's happening today and not in the past. The other thing you can do is to visit operating layouts. Go to more than one if you can. You go to a regional convention, there might be several. Go to the national convention, and there's more than you can possibly go to. Evaluate them. What did you like about each one? What did you dislike about each one? And from this, you can learn the pros and cons of the various things I've mentioned. And then that's how you can decide what makes sense for you. So, in summary, what did I tell you? I told you to fit your layout into the real world. I suggested you define a layout era. Figure out how you know where your cars are going to go. The hardest part probably is putting together that train schedule. Got to figure out how to keep the trains from bumping into each other. Told you to go study things. And if you do all of those things, you'll have developed an operating scheme. And if you then operate, you can earn the Chief Dispatcher Certificate in the NMRA's Achievement Program. And I've got a whole bunch of those certificates, and this was the very first one. And that's the end of the clinic. Questions? Is anybody still awake?
No, I'm awake. Sorry, I was trying to unmute. So you brought up a very good point about getting foreign cars or foreign. Sorry about that. But one of the things I was looking at when I was doing my research on, because I do everything Great Northern, Northern Pacific, and one of the yards in Minneapolis, I noticed there is an Erie Lackawanna, rolling right past the yard there in Minneapolis. So I'm like, where did that come from? Because I didn't think those two railroads even touched, or you were able to. I mean, I know you can get there from here, but
Yeah, you can get there from here, and that's what that car did.
so, but it's an Erie Lackawanna engine with a A unit and with the old Scheme B unit rolling past the Minneapolis yard. So I was kind of curious when I saw it, and some friends of mine were looking at it and they were like, what is that doing there? So so you never know. I mean, you'll look on a railroad and all of a sudden it's like, why is that engine on your railroad? Because your railroad's Great Northern. I'm like, the foreign engines can come in and out. Foreign box cars can come in and out. So it was a good
Yep.
point.
Yep. Anybody else?
Bob, I think that was extremely informative. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I do appreciate it. It was intriguing for me because I don't do a lot of operations. Bob is always trying to get me to go do operations at one place or another. And I haven't done any, so not really. It's kind of opened my eyes a little bit about what we can do. So I really do appreciate it. You bring
my pleasure.
I know you've got some follow-ons, right? Some follow-ons.
I've got one where I can talk for an hour about how I do my railroad. And that railroad is, well, it's pushing 43 years right now. It was started in 1980. So it's been around a while, and it has moved a couple of times. And I've actually moved the whole darn thing twice. And so I've got a clinic I call Evolution of an Operating Scheme, and how the railroad has evolved over all that time. And I keep both of those clinics up to date. I keep updating them. So there'll probably be something different from last summer when I did them in St. Louis.
Well, I'd love to hear those. So we'll be back in touch for you to.
Okay.
To bring
I'll be
those.
glad to do them over the course of time.
Yes. Oh, yes, sir. No worries. So anybody else have any questions for Bob?
Yeah, I do, Bob. Eric Peterson here up on the Central Indiana Division. A lot of people are hesitant to get started in trying out operations and being part of a crew and doing it for a first time. I've done some. I find the biggest barrier is getting to know the railroad. And do you have any special thoughts on getting new operators, making them feel comfortable and getting them started off to a good start?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I've had kind of a transition of operators from before and after COVID for various reasons. And in fact, I had a guy in on Thursday night for a regular operating session who had never done it before. And he picked up on it pretty quickly. But what I try to do is put it with a current or a veteran for a while. I do have that employee timetable, and I make sure I got plenty of them. And they've got obviously a list of the stations in there. And so I'll usually send them packing with that. And the other key thing is to keep it fun. You don't snarl at anybody when they make a mistake. I told them we try to laugh with people, not at them. And so it's supposed to be fun. I want the guy to come back. I don't want him scared off. And this guy actually seemed to pick it up pretty quickly. Other folks, they get into it. I've got some now who hadn't seen the layout before, maybe a year ago, and now they can do any job on the railroad. And other people just have a gift for this. There was a fellow who moved down here from the New Jersey division, retired to West Virginia, He drives 3 hours to come to my operating sessions. He just picked right up on everything amazingly. He has done every job on the railroad, knows the place cold, and he just has a sense for it, and really really does it well. And some folks will never get it, and other folks get it with some help. So I don't know if that answered your question very well.
I think that does. I think a lot of people are maybe the most intimidated by taking on a yard job.
Oh yeah.
And being a
Yeah.
yard master is or dispatcher, obviously, are two of the more intimidating jobs. Of course, Richard got me going on that at one time, and we have a long series of stories about that event. But it can be learned. It can be learned very quickly, shall we say?
You did a
Yes,
great
it
job.
can. It can. The yard master thing, at least on my railroad, if you just look at the sequence of events you got to do, no one of them is particularly difficult. It may look like it's an intimidating job, but one of the things that we did was rewrote the schedule a few years ago, and that took an awful lot of load off of the yard master. We discovered that there were a whole lot of cars going from one staging yard to another from that branch line, and we just consolidated them into solid trains and skipped the yard. And that really made things a lot smoother. And it's there's a lot of industries to switch, but if you're switching those, that's no different than switching industries anywhere else. And so really, I think with a little bit of coaching, you could probably do it. Again, the same small chore many times.
Right. Very good. Thank you.
Okay. Bob, this is Bob.
Yes.
Also. Richard Siegel, I'm talking about, had to put up with me. I come from California from two major layouts. One's in Balboa Park, and one of them is Enscale, which is out of Oceanside area of San Diego County. And we do operations almost every weekend in these big gigantic layouts. But when Richard took me over, I had no concept of how to do operations on a small layout. And he put up with me several times. And I find out the biggest problem I have always thought was is timing. Who's on the track when? And I'm sorry about this. But he helped me, and then with Ken Hoot doing the paperwork with it put everything together. So it's a learning curve, is what I'm trying to say. And let the people who come on board know it's a learning curve. Don't get upset. Just keep on coming back, and you'll get it.
Well, there's a guy in my division, one of the guys in my operating crew has gotten his railroad to a point where it's operable, but it is a relatively short main line with branches and branches off of branches. And it's a real spaghetti ball. And I'm gradually learning it.
And that brings up a good point, Bob, is like what Christina was talking about earlier, was there might be somebody right down the road that has, a layout right next to you. You're having operating sessions on your layout, and the guy down the road, he may be having operating sessions or have a layout that's developed well enough that he could host operating sessions. So
you just never know. And trying to find them if they're not already a member, or if they're a member of one of the other clubs, that might help. But in the area. And one of the things we're trying to do is in our division area, which again is large, not quite like yours, but there are several clubs in all the major towns, and one of them just had a show here in Charleston. I'm in Charleston, West Virginia, and the other clubs were there. We had a meeting of their principals, and our newsletter now is going to have a club news column that they contribute to, and the idea is that'll be a way they get to communicate with each other. And I'm hoping that maybe we'll get some members out of it that way. We already have some members that are in each of these clubs. So
It's
I'm just
pollination that way too, so.
yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So I don't know if Gordy, are you still with us? Kind of hanging out in the background? All right, so, and I
Can I
know,
put you to
yeah.
sleep, Gordy?
No. I'm here. I'm just in the middle of building a workbench and listening to the clinics.
Okay. Okay.
So,
Well, it's not too late in the evening there. It's just, well,
this
we'll just
is
be getting
this is
started about
only
this time
meeting number
tomorrow.
2. I've got 2
Yeah.
more meetings tonight. The last one's at
Oh.
1 a.m.
you gonna go to the NMRA,
So-
are you gonna go to the Zoom track meeting?
I've got a Zoom track, and then I've got a meeting about the Free Moen at Dallas.
Uh-oh. I was like, whoa, somebody's putting
Yeah.
their,
Hello, Annabelle.
there's Annabelle.
Hello, Annabelle.
You saying hello?
Hi. How are you doing?
All right.
Are you up late?
You're going to bed now, aren't you?
Mommy's gonna read you a story.
Go on have a story.
Night, night, Dad.
Night, night. Say night, night to everyone.
Annabelle.
Night.
There we go.
Yep.
Andy, we can't hear you. We see.
Can't hear you, Andy.
Sorry, I was holding down the wrong end of the space bar. So instead of putting my finger in the middle, it was all the way to the other side. But anyway, I wanted to thank Bob for that, for everything. Thanks for being patient. Christina went a little long. But Gordy, I just want to know if you want to take us out. So anything you have to say, good to the group, or?
No, I think you've had 2 great clinics. Christina gave us a lot there. Some of it is more relevant to you guys than others. The key thing is around making sure that you're telling people what you're doing, and make sure people are aware, because otherwise they can't take part in events like this and events in person. And I think Bob is right that one of the biggest bits of fellowship in the NMRA is doing op sessions. And last week I managed to find probably the only copy in the UK of Tony Coaster's new book about Alan McClellan's V&O layout, and it's a fantastic book. If you've not, I had a copy of the V&O story, but which was originally by Carstens and then White River. It's out of print now, but you can get the copy of the V&O story by Calmbach that's just been released last year, and it's really good. Also check out stuff with OpSig as well. Some of it looks a bit serious, but ultimately it's all about running trains and having fun. So I hope that's what you all do for the rest of the night, and don't be like me sitting in loads of meetings.
Well,
Apart from
something
you,
else
Andy.
they can do is they can read the NMRA magazine that just came out and read Gordy's column about why Rail Pass members aren't renewing, or how to change that.
Oh, there you go.
And Gordy, mention how you do operations with speed in Texas.
Yeah, so of course, yeah, thanks, Bob. So the speed is in Texas, Gordy is in Orkney, and so I dispatch speed's layout remotely from here. All I can see of the layout is the control panel, which doesn't completely have detection yet. And then I electronically issue a track warrant, which is a different type of system for dispatching that we've not talked about. It's a whole different clinic. But I issue a track warrant to a locomotive crew. I enter that into a Google form. They could, but they don't. They could pick that up on a tablet in a Google Drive. But what they do is they handwrite it, so they've got their own copy with them. And then they run the trains and I set the switches, and then they tell me when they've got to where they need to go. And so I dispatch effectively speed layout from Orkney, 4,000 or 5,000 miles away. And we use an app called Zello. Is it Zello? Yeah, Zello, to talk to each other using two-way communications, which I speak, they hear it instantly. and we have a net just like a real railroad. And it's great. It's interesting. It puts a challenge on it because Speed's layout is set in Namibia, where they have a very strong accent, with Texans who have a very strong accent, and Gordy who has a different accent. And so it becomes very interesting. Some of the readbacks are quite a lot of fun. But that I designed that dispatching system for Speed. Speed built the panels with Chris Atkins, but I designed all the paperwork electronically. And that means that layout's now been dispatched by people literally all over the world. In fact, someone from Namibia dispatched the layout as well. So it's a whole lot of fun. You don't have to have a big layout in your back garden or in your basement or, in your local area to get involved with operations. You don't even need to leave your house, really. So there you go.
Well, the real dispatchers in the real world aren't in a place to see their railroad. In fact, more and more of them are maybe hundreds of thousands of miles away from the piece they're dispatching.
I do find it comfortable dispatching in my PJs, but I would be interested to try the local beer selection out. I think it's a bit disappointing that some of the local beers are not available in Orkney.
Oh, well. You have to take some back.
There you go. We'll bring you some of the good stuff when we come to Texas. So, all right, once again, thank you, everybody. Does anybody else have any other questions, whether it's for Gordy or it's for Bob or for the Northern Division? Anything else? Going once, going twice? Because we've got, what's that, 4 o'clock or 4:30? I think it's at 4 o'clock, right, Bob? Zoom track? 4 o'clock Eastern, I think. Anyway, so we got that coming up in half an hour. We all need to take our quick break. So, but again, thank you for everything. And Bob, we're going to have you back. I greatly appreciate it. And hopefully the word gets out and we start bringing in more and more of these members to sit through some of these, because these are fantastic.
Well, good. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, everyone.
It's plenty of fun doing them.
There you go. That's it.
Okay.
All right, everyone. Thank you very much. Have a great evening, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, I'll call you, Richard.
See you.
Good seeing you again, Eric.
Yeah.
Take care.